Hello, hello, this is Magus Vibora, the Magician of Words, and we are going to be discussing video games and whether they're worth your hard-earned time. Today, we will be discussing the 1.1 update to Neverness to Everness, and more specifically the events that have been added as part of this big step in the game's life cycle. Now, I want to say before we get started that I'm absolutely thrilled to see there's a new area in the form of Sunward Island, and it's absolutely fantastic to see the story continuing so soon after the launch of the game. But once you've successfully made your way through, or maybe completely ignored the Dreamwalk Corridor story, what will you do with your time? Well, beyond dailies, of course. Well, Hotta Studios has prepared, according to their official calendar, 9 events at the launch of the update that we've had access to since the beginning, with the Fonz Rush starting yesterday at time of recording, bringing that total up to 10, which is an awful lot of events. And there's been just enough time to dig into them and figure out whether they're worth their stuff. In case you don't have the time to sit through this entire video and too long didn't watch, Hotta is definitely relying on a quantity over quality strategy for their development model. Of the 9 events, Fading Reverie and Ever Driving are banners with zero gameplay. Uncharted Circle is a remix of the Beyond the Rails content that we're already familiar with. The Lacrimosa Great Person community event is a strategy for engagement on their Discord server. Circle Gifts is a login bonus. It leaves us with 4 events that are worth talking about as far as gaming time sinks are concerned, and it's what I'm personally excited to dig into today. They are, of course, What's Baking, the Underground Circuit, the Long Dream, and the Sunward Travelogue. Now, it's worth mentioning that we've already seen 2 events go live prior to update 1.1, which have moved on since their starts, and they left quite a bit to be desired. There was the Zero's Companion event, which was essentially checking off regular daily events that you might be unaware of in the companion of one of your playable characters that you like. So that's cool, you know, it's pretty straightforward, but it gets some rewards with something to do. Then there was the Whisker Patrol event, which quickly boiled down to spending 2 minutes defeating gangsters in the construction yard of the northeast part of the map before moving on with the rest of your daily events. Neither of these was particularly involving, neither of them brought stakes or narrative, but they did serve a function to introduce some players to the aspects of the game that they might be unfamiliar with. It showed to some players, for example, the importance of the Nakupita Pool Daily and the uses of mousy cookies. Well, sort of. More just the ways of finding them. To the credit of the 1.1 update, the events that have been added in are much more involved than the previous ones, which is a point in its favor. We celebrate these wins. Let's go through them one after the next to figure out what their deal actually is in a bit of an overview. So I'm going to start with the event that has the least going on, the Long Dream. You just have to find Lacrimosa around the city, she being the most recently added banner character. Her banner is still running at time of discussion, and she's in the city in 8 unique locations. They've been putting out clues to her various napping spots as the event goes on, but you can find a guide online really easily, and if you've managed to spot her before the update, she'll still be in the same locations, except maybe the spot by the roundabout near the Nakupita Pool. I haven't seen her sleeping there. There's not much else to say about this event. It's more of a signpost than anything else, but it does certainly show off some of the more interesting locations in Heatherope, which I can always approve of. Now, when I first heard of this next event, What's Baking, I assumed it would have something to do with the cafe system, or the owner selection event in particular, where you had to serve food to customers, but it turned out instead to be a part of the often foreshadowed Bagel app, which is essentially a Twitter or X counterpart within this game's world. The event involves the player posting on the app and getting likes, or liking other people's photos and videos, following each other and their feeds, that sort of thing. There are some examples of creativity that I've seen. I've seen some pretty good edits, mostly with color filters and angle shots, but also a lot of the content that I've seen since launch has had some real Gooner energy. I'd say that Hotta has pretty brave developers for putting a feature like this in the game, and they have started implementing some aggressive moderation to keep the Bagel app a relatively family-friendly space. The actual gameplay here involves taking pictures around the city that you think people might like, which does touch on what I believe to be the central draw of the game, the exploration of Heatherope, but there isn't a whole lot of guided content here. more like letting the players loose to do whatever they like. As a game system, it's kind of neat to have the bagel app, but we'll have to see how strict the moderation becomes over time. As a headlining event though, it doesn't make a ton of sense to me. There's no mini game, no narrative, it's just an opportunity to break out those Photoshop skills, at least the limited Photoshop options that we have in the game. So, it's neat. On the plus side, it does seem as though Bagel will, continue to be a part of the game for a long time. Also, there's going to be some phone customization. Like, there are already some phone customization options, but we'll kind of see how that develops as we go. And maybe there'll be more unique events similar to the ones found in the official Discord server, where in the Discord server, you have to post pictures of particular events or characters or like give a message to Lacrimosa, that sort of thing. So there's some potential there. Next on the list, we have the Sunward Travelogue, which tasks the player with finding all of the side stories around the new Sunward Island, or maybe called Sunny Island. I don't know why. There are a couple of different names. I'm sure it's fine. These are mostly straightforward tasks. There's nine of them, and you can find them scattered around the island. They have little folklorish SCP yokai sort of stories attached to them. A couple of them are quite cool, but most of them are very simple. I enjoyed the aha moment of discovery when figuring out how to enter the dance party in the little village at the highest point of the island. And finding an ancient broken blade was a really cool lore moment, suggesting a deeper history to the island and of Heathero itself. There's this on that topic, there are these little areas where you can find like knights and ancient samurai and swords and things, and I like any part of the game that sort of hints towards this more fantasy-focused history of the game world. I'm not really sure what to make of that yet, but it's very cool. However, I do feel as though these stories for the Sunward Travelogue event were short, and sometimes was a little bit confused on whether I'd actually finish them, or if there would be a continuation. Like, why can't I pull the sword from the stone? Can I actually do something about the ghost lingering in the tunnel? Not really, the game says. Move on to the next story already. So I think this is a general criticism of all of the little yokai stories. Like, some of them are excellent. The leaky faucet back in the main part of Heathero, that is an excellent sequence. The hospital is fantastic, even if there's some pixel hunting you have to do. I really should make a video about that at some point. There are some problems. There are some problems with a couple of these events just in terms of their readability and understanding what you have to do. But for the Sunward Travelogue, they're pretty straightforward, and you finish them, you get your awards, you move on, which is fine. It's more stuff to do. We love that. The final event, and honestly, this is the big one, right? This is the most involved event worth talking about. I think it's going to be a divisive one. I've already seen comments on Twitter and on YouTube. Some people saying they're having a blast with it. Some people saying that they're having a terrible time and they'll never touch the game mode again. Underground Circuit is a really bizarre take on the Mario Kart style of racing, where you have powerful pickups and rubber banding mechanics like the blue shell. There's actually lots of items on the map that can be used as a blue shell, and in general, if a car gets hit twice with the blue shell, they blow up, and then the person in that car, it always hits the person coming first unless you're in first, in which case it hits the person behind you, which is fine. Like, it's a fine mechanic, but it's really disheartening having to jump out of the car and find a new one. It can really suck to try and stay in first place. I can tell you from my personal experience that the races are at their best when the race is close, but this only really happens every about 1 in 5 races. Most of the time I find I'm either too far ahead or too far behind to have any real impact on the other races. Although I did have one really fun race where a player named Epstein hopped into the side of my car to play the gunner, and that team aspect was a lot of fun. So, shout out to Epstein. The rewards you get from this event are useful, but as a lot of players have figured out by now, the best way to farm resources might be to just hit the start button and then walk away from the game. On day 1, there were 15,000 points you need to get in order to farm for the day. Like, that's a lot. You get 800 points from just participating, 2,000 points if you finish in first, and somewhere in between for placing second to fifth. The actual gameplay is I'd call it an inspired mess. Like, there's a lot of different power-ups, a lot of different weapons, but they all kind of do the same thing. I shouldn't say a lot of different power-ups, a lot of different cars. There's only like one power-up, it's the blue shell. So yeah, it feels like more than it is sometimes. Yeah, aiming in your car is also a bit of a hassle, but if your car is destroyed and you have to run up and down the racetrack looking for a new vehicle, that can be annoying. I'll probably make a separate video about this event soon, but you run out of meaningful rewards pretty quickly. I think after day like 3 or 4, and it's pretty easy to just stand off to the side at the start of the race, make a cup of tea, and then come back to get your 800 points after the 4 or 5 minutes have ended. So it can be fun. It's definitely the best of the bunch, but I wouldn't call it a reliable game mode that's fun every time you play it. Now these events, they're all different, right? There are lots of varied activities, so there's lots of stuff to do still, and I welcome the experimentation, particularly from the racing one. Even if it doesn't work out, you learn something new for the next set of events you're going to implement. But something that I want to talk about, and honestly this is kind of the reason why I'm making this video, is that these events aren't really going to survive contact with the enemy, i.e. the players. They're not particularly interesting to engage with and are pretty easy to cheese and game to get the points you need. I would also really like these events to have some more character tie-in. I don't know why they're so separated from the story itself. We're going to the Dreamwalk Corridor storyline. Why don't any of these events have something to do with the Dreamwalk Corridor? I don't know. One of the things that the Pink Balls Heist does do really well is characterize Giovanni as a bit of a psychopath, like a rich asshole. Setting up this death gauntlet for the players in his bank movies. Like, imagine regular people trying to make their way through this and just getting beat up by the anomalies within. Incredible stuff. As well as giving Cheese a few moments to show her role in the company. Like, I'm sure that Giovanni and that entire rich family, there's lots of foreshadowing around the like get rich quick anomaly that's backing them. It sounds like that's the thing that's pulling the strings behind Giovanni's like corporate empire, and I'm really hoping we're going to see more of that in the future. So the Pink Paws Heist does a lot to characterize Giovanni himself and that whole banking chain, which I think is just awesome. And yeah, apparently Cheese is like the showrunner of that whole event, given that she plays the recording of her boss. And I assume that she's the one handling the day-to-day running of the whole thing. So far we haven't really learned anything about the characters and world from the events that are currently ongoing that we couldn't have learned from just exploring the world and playing the game. I want to see this game thriving, and I would really love to see events actually heralded by the characters that we know and love. Hathor running a bike race, Nanali leading us in a war against the gangsters, Hottery, I don't know, throws a big booze party that we get to attend. Like, there are a lot of interesting premises that would lead to more engaging events than kill 30 enemies to get these upgrade materials, or post 5 times and like 3 posts every day. Like, it's fine, but it doesn't speak to the characters that they want us to go attached to. Zero's Companion paid some lip service to this, but I would love to see more events tie into the banner characters. I mean, the Long Dream sort of does, but who's telling you to go and talk to Lacrimosa? Nobody. It's just go find her. Good luck. It's okay. I'd like some more in-depth stuff. I like storylines. That's what I'd like to see. I hope that I'm coming off as fair in my opinion here. I'm really enjoying my time in Heathrow, and it is the main character, and I want to keep playing this game for a long time. Years, ideally. If Hotta Studios wants us to attach to these characters, I want to see them taking part in the regular events of the game. If they want their fan base to keep getting excited about these events that they're putting out, they can't just give us rewards for participation. They need to go beyond a basic framing device. I think Underground Circuit in particular is a good step in the right direction. Although one revision I might suggest would be to actually pair players up from the beginning into the 2-player teams, because when you're in the race, there is very little incentive to actually wait for someone else to get in your car. It's kind of a spontaneous thing that happens occasionally, and it's always fun when it happens. I digress. Thank you for listening to this video, and I hope that you will let me know down in the comments below what you think. What's been your favorite event so far? Have you been enjoying them? What would you like to see from NTE in the future? I'd really like to hear what you have to say that I can keep informing my own opinions. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe and all that jazz.